The views expressed on this program are those of the producers and individuals appearing on this program and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Sun Prairie Media Center staff, its video service providers, or the staff and elected officials of the City of Sun Prairie.
Well, hello there, and welcome to Real Reviews. My name is Jameson Rabbit, and this week I'm so excited to be rejoined once again by my old pal, my boss, the king of this place. It's Jeff Robbins. Hi, sir.
So here's what we'll do. After the show, we'll go over to the Colonial Club.
Yeah.
And we'll run some cribbage scams.
Let's do it.
You and I will partner up.
Yeah.
We'll scam some people out of
I'm in.
some cribbage scams. Yeah, okay. Sounds good.
I love where your head's at. It's good. It seems like it's been thought out.
Yeah. Well.
We got a bunch of movies to talk about this week. We have 4 films.
I'm not going to derail the episode this week.
Please.
I'm going to let you do your thing.
The movies will derail the episode for us. But I'm going to get us started. Start with what we have on the marquee this week. It's the big movie of the week. It is the return of a huge franchise. The Fast and the Furious franchise is back with Fast X. Director Louis Leterrier is back with the 10th film in the franchise that began with a street racing crew and now has become bigger stakes than most Bond movies. And this one opens with a reminder of the events at the end of Fast 5, the one that, for my money, kind of changed the trajectory of this franchise into the insanity that it's become. And this flashback sets up who and why and what our antagonist is, and that is played by Jason Momoa. He plays Dante, who at the end of Fast 5 watched his father get killed by Dom and his gang and had his inheritance stolen. He's out for revenge, but first he wants to make sure that Dom and his family suffer first. So as Dom and Letty settle in with their young son Brian and trying to lead a normal life, nothing is normal as the past comes back to haunt them in the form of Cypher, who we see return as Charlize Theron's character. She is their former adversary from previous film, and she has a warning about Dante. Dante's coming. And Dante is willing to go to any length to draw these folks out, and he loves to go after children as leverage. Meanwhile, the rest of the team is running around Rome, which sets off kind of our first big action sequence that we saw here involving a Raiders of the Lost Ark type sequence with a boulder-sized bomb. And Rome is where Dante introduces himself to everyone and the tech that he has stolen from Cypher. And of course, we also have to get in a bunch of agency mumbo-jumbo as the void of Kurt Russell's Mr. Nobody is being filled. We have his daughter, who is played by Brie Larson, who is sympathetic to this team that he has used in the past. You have the new director, a guy named Ames, who's played by Alan Ritchson, who you might know from Jack Reacher series. He plays Jack Reacher. He sees them as a threat, and he hilariously recounts the history of these films. Like, these guys started out as street racers, and then they did this, and we're just watching clips from all the movies and how they've progressed. And I thought he kind of hilariously also calls them out for defying physics and God, basically, these things. And the bulk of this film is just seeing everyone branching off into their own side stories, while Jacob, played by John Cena, and young Brian are off on their own kind of comedic mission, and Letty and Cypher doing their thing, and Han and Roman and Tej and Ramsey are running around, and Dom and his indestructible car are going off to face Dante. And there's so much happening in here, like, to try and figure it all out. But
I bet you fell asleep during this movie.
More importantly, you
Yes,
have
sir.
never seen a Fast and the Furious movie. Is this correct?
So you just outed me on the show here.
No. Because this is amazing to me.
Why is that amazing to you?
Because there's
It's
no
not
better
the
way
kind of movie
to.
that I would.
There's no better way
seek out.
to jump in than with the 10th episode of a series.
I said when they get to 10, that's when I'm in.
Right.
Yeah. Are you asking me a question here?
I'm asking you, did any of this make sense to you?
Well, I mean, yeah, it made sense. I'm sure that I would have probably maybe enjoyed it more if I knew the characters a little better, if I knew the backstories. But I mean, the activity made sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. How did you feel? Like, one of the things I always
This is like an interview all of a sudden.
Yeah,
it's like
it
a
is.
job interview.
Okay. I felt that the film did a good job of juggling all these various stories. When you start splitting your characters off into too many missions, oftentimes I feel like someone gets robbed as we focus on one story. I felt they did a pretty good job with that.
Okay.
Were you able to did you track everything that was going on with all these various missions?
Yeah, I mean, I think I did. I mean, I think the worst thing about this movie, as far as I was concerned, was that it was overlong. It was bloated. It was 2 hours and 21 minutes. I mean, I think you could take huge chunks out of this movie, and it wouldn't matter a damn thing. I mean, there's fist fights that aren't interesting. There's that race in Rio de Janeiro
For no reason?
For no reason. It's like, why is this happening? Why do we care? I didn't really care at all about the Michelle Rodriguez and Charlize Theron subplot. I didn't understand where that was going. But one thing I don't think you said is that I believe this is like the beginning of the end.
This
so
is
there's
a
like,
three-part trilogy
Right.
to end the franchise. Louis Leterrier says, I need 9 hours to wrap up this franchise. He does not.
So I think there are things that don't really get paid off in this movie.
Sure.
that
Oh,
I
yeah,
think,
absolutely.
Yeah, will get paid off in the future. So you kind of come in at the 10th installment, and then I didn't get the.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be
sense.
a lot of things, but I have been very critical of this franchise. I've hated a large majority of these movies.
Yeah.
And I have felt many times when the new installment comes out, where I'm watching going, did I miss an episode of this? Because there's like, they're talking all this backstory. I'm like, a lot of times I feel like it just washes over me and I don't care.
Well, I was reading all the synopses of the previous films, and it was like this film takes place after this film, but
there's that
before this
too.
film, and
There's
so
that, like,
the chronology is all.
Sometimes I don't care
muddled.
enough to try and
Right.
put it all in order in my head. The one thing I really enjoyed
Was that
about this-
opening scene actually from another movie? Or
it was
that
from
a
Fast
new-
5. It was the end of Fast 5.
Okay, so that was not a newly
And then
shot sequence.
but then they shot different because Momoa wasn't in Fast 5.
Okay.
So all of his stuff, his perspective of that was new.
Yeah.
But the rest of it was just footage from the end of the film.
Okay.
Speaking of Jason Momoa, I thought he was, as a villain, I thought he was wonderful. I love, he's kind of a fanboy of Dominic. He's flamboyant. He's very charismatic. But he's out for blood, and he's ruthless, and he's willing to do anything. And he almost was like Joker-esque to me in this movie. And I mean, Jason Momoa just jumps off the screen.
I wouldn't go that far, but I did enjoy him. I thought he
was
very
by
well.
far the best part of this film, and probably my favorite part of this franchise, because villains are always tough. And this wasn't just like, we have to do a heist and then do this mission. Like, this one was more personal, and I liked him a lot. Like, I was rooting for the bad guy in this movie, because
Is that because you
he
don't
was-
care for Vin Diesel?
I'm not a big Vin Diesel guy to begin with. No, I don't care about most of these people, but I really
He's
like
such a
Momoa's
stiff.
character.
I mean, he's just it's impossible to care about that character. I think he's just nothing. And he mumbles all his dialogue.
He's
and,
very monotone. And
Yeah.
these movies have a very simple formula, and it happens all the time.
Here's my impression of Vin Diesel.
Give it to me.
Every shot of anybody driving a car,
Yeah.
they're
All the way into it.
yeah okay.
Yeah, you have Coronas. We got to mention family. There's got to be an insane mission. We got to talk about family again.
Yeah.
Somebody has to return from the dead, and then we end with a meal. That's every movie. That's the template.
This one didn't end with a meal. It started with a meal.
It did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
because
like John Cena as well. I want to throw that in. I
John
thought he
Cena's
was
a lot of
good.
fun in this.
I thought he had really good chemistry with the young actor that played Little B.
Yeah.
Much better than his father, played by Vin Diesel, had with him.
But I mean, some of the stuff like John Cena. I mean, he's driving around in a car that the physics do not work with him driving his Canon car. Like,
How many
that's not
times?
real.
How many times can I see a car catch on fire and flip over?
How many times can you watch Dom drop out of a plane, fly through the air, get slammed into a bridge, and
Yeah.
then just hit the NOS and keep going?
Yeah, nothing phases him.
So,
Vin Diesel.
are you going to continue? You gonna be here for Fast 11?
No, I mean,
This
if
didn't
it-
hook you?
unless I'm doing this show, I will not see Fast.
Well,
11.
I know what I got to do then.
There you
I
go.
have my own mission now.
There you go.
What did you end up giving Fast X, sir?
Well, I thought there were some fun sequences. I thought the Rome sequence that you mentioned was fun. I gave it 2 stars.
I actually found myself enjoying this more than any of the previous iterations of this film.
Wow, any of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought the 10th one was the most fun. I ended up giving it 3.5 out of 5 stars.
Holy
I think
moly,
it's
you're
big,
insane. You've lost your mind.
It's big, dumb, stupid fun. And whereas the other ones were big and dumb.
Okay.
And they were lacking the rest. So it's playing in theaters right now.
Oh, it sure is.
Absolutely. All right, speaking of playing in theaters, what do you have for us?
I have a film called Master Gardener for you, Jameson Rabbit. This is the latest film from longtime writer-director Paul Schrader. Like many of Schrader's films, Master Gardener deals with a troubled, self-destructive protagonist who's on some sort of mission to cleanse himself and some poor, unfortunate soul he has taken under his wing. Here, that troubled soul is played by Joel Edgerton. He is Narvel Roth, the titular gardener. He's the resident head horticulturalist of Gracewood Gardens. That's a beautiful estate run by Norma Haverhill, thank you.
Haverhill?
Something like that. Played by the great Sigourney Weaver. Now, Narvel at first, he seems like an amazingly dull character. Stoic, docile, subservient, with an incredible knowledge of gardening that would put any reasonable person quickly to sleep. You know, there's that scene at the beginning where they're all...
Yeah, smell the dirt.
Smell the dirt, smell the dirt.
Yeah.
But wouldn't you know it,
Kiss the
Jameson?
dirt.
Wouldn't you know it, he turns out to be a former neo-Nazi who regularly murdered people in a former life before blowing the whistle on his gang of racist idiots and being put in some sort of witness protection program. Now, the immaculate gardens and grounds of Gracewood Gardens seems like a perfect place for a Narvel to hide. Who's going to look for a neo-Nazi there, right? But trouble starts a-brewing when Mrs. Haverhill, I cannot say that
Haverhill.
word. Thank you. Brings on her grandniece, Maya, for an apprenticeship under the tutelage of our Narvel Roth. You know, see, Maya's got a pretty unseemly past with a pretty unseemly cast of characters who she hasn't completely shaken herself from. So soon Narvel is making it his mission to cleanse Maya from her past, just like Travis Bickle tried to free Jodie Foster from a life of drugs and prostitution.
You saw that,
in
huh?
his script for Taxi Driver.
Yeah.
Now, despite the general predictability and been there, done that vibe of this film, that to me did not prevent it from being really interesting. All the acting in this film I think is fantastic, starting with Edgerton, who is more interesting to watch, brandishing a pair of pruning shears than any army of Vin Diesels could ever be. And Sigourney Weaver is great as a grand dame who finds Narvel equally reprehensible and desirable.
Yes.
What'd you think?
I really enjoyed this. Joel Edgerton was really amazing.
Yeah, he was really
I mean, Paul Schrader is
fun to
great,
watch.
and he describes this film as his final chapter in his Man in a Room trilogy with First Reformed and Card Counter.
Yeah.
Of guys who are solitary, quiet men who are trying to atone for a past. And this was great. I love Paul Schrader, and I love depressing, slow burning films, and he's a master at that.
Right.
And yeah, Narvel seems like a boring guy. There's always something bubbling under the surface. And his dynamic with Mrs. Haverhill, how he's subservient to her, but she calls him a sweet pea.
Right.
She calls him up to a room, and she wants to see those Nazi tattoos.
Yes, she
It
does.
titillates her. Mm-hmm. But she is cold and distant to him, and very cold and distant to her grandniece.
She's cold and distant in general.
Right, but especially cruel to her grandniece. Is that because she's got some of those same white supremacist leanings? The grandniece is of mixed race. All these things kind of happening in here. How quickly she turns on everyone who has been there for her. But Narvel is, man, he's great. And him trying to atone for his past and seeing Maya as his project of trying to kind of get that redemption and
Right.
clean her up as a junkie and all. I thought it was great. And
I saw this movie with two other people, and both of them said to me after the movie that they wish they had seen more of Narvel's previous life, which we see basically in a series of relatively short flashbacks. Actually, really short flashbacks.
really short, yeah.
But I didn't agree with that. I thought that, I was more interested to see, him trying to make his way in the present than the mistakes that he'd made in the past.
I think we got what we needed out
Yeah.
of his past. We understand who he was.
You understand who he was, right?
The film is beautiful. I mean, those beauty shots of the garden, the close-ups of the flowers. I mean, the estate looked gorgeous.
Right.
As he's kind of educating you the intricacies of everything, the history of this and all that, and then you juxtapose that with shots of some of the most horribly ugly symbols of hate right up against that, and the film felt like a bit of a puzzle to me. It left me with some unanswered questions, and I like that. Paul Schrader doesn't hold your hand through a film. He leaves you wanting a little bit and not quite sure what to think about it. It's making a protagonist who isn't the best guy.
We're led
Right?
to
Your hero's not a great guy.
We're led to believe at the end of the movie that there's going to be it's not a ending like Taxi Driver.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little more upbeat than that.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Depending on what you think of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I really liked the scenes. I didn't write down the actor's name, but the scenes with his case manager I thought were really interesting.
Yeah, that was played by S.A. Morales, Neruda.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that dynamic, and then I loved when
he's replaced.
This other guy's much more like a laid back kind of like, hey, let's talk about your problems.
Yeah, like, I don't trust you.
It's not working out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you end up giving Master Gardener?
I gave Master Gardener a 3.5 stars.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I'd recommend it.
Yeah, I would as well. I gave it 4 stars. I really like Joel Edgerton a lot, and Paul Schrader. That combination is something that I would definitely sit down for another film. This is playing in theaters somewhere near you. Check it out.
There you go. That's why it's on the marquee.
There you go. All right, let's move into our streaming spotlights. First, we go to HBO Max, or if you logged on this week, it's now just Max.
I don't quite get that. But
threw me for a loop. I didn't like it.
I don't want to derail the
I had to find my new login information.
Yeah.
All right, but we were talking about a film called Land of Gold.
Land of Gold.
Writer, director, and star.
Not Land of Lakes.
No. Writer, director, star Nardeep Kurmi. He directs and stars as a man named Kieran. This is his feature film debut as a director. Kieran and his wife are expecting a baby, and to help make ends meet, he accepts a job from a friend to drive a semi to pick up a delivery, drop off a delivery in Boston. And this decision happens just as his wife, Preeti, is getting close to her due date. And this doesn't sit well with her, but Kieran leaves anyways because they need to find money to make ends meet for his baby, which also leaves his wife with his sometimes judgmental, sometimes demanding mother. They don't have the best dynamic all the time, but Kieran uses this time on the road to deal with some unresolved trauma from his past. As he's about to become a father, he dwells on his memories of his own father and the lessons that he taught him, but also the horrors that his father went through as a Punjabi in America, a truck driver, and we keep seeing flashbacks we see him here, to some really traumatizing things that he had to see his father go through as a child. All of this self-reflection comes to a halt, though, when he discovers that he has a 10-year-old Mexican girl hiding in his truck. She is trying to reach her uncle in Maine, having run away from her family. And after struggling with what to do with this girl, the big question comes up, are you undocumented? And this kind of makes their journey even more perilous as authorities and ICE agents are checking trucks for immigrants hiding, or even the drivers themselves. And if Kieran saw his own father get brutalized by ICE agents and authorities, is always trying to stay below the radar of those people as a Punjabi American. But he resolves to help this young girl, a girl named Elena, played by Caroline Valencia, and to kind of take a surrogate father role to her as they're on the road. And almost seems like he's practicing for what's to come in his life. And the middle of this film is really a lovely look, I thought, at two people from different cultures sharing their culture, teaching each other about things and bonding about things they have in common. And it's in how they see the world that they're in and how the world perceives them here in America and how they're looked at and treated by strangers. They have various interactions with strangers in this film, some good, some not so good. There's this wonderful bit where Kieran has a talk with a father who has trouble communicating with his son, and they kind of have this back and forth. And Kieran really isn't a father yet, but they have this nice little thing. And I think at the heart of this film is the connection between Kieran and Elena, and that kind of builds naturally and hits bumps along the road, no pun intended, that seem unavoidable for any pseudo-father-daughter relationship. And I thought I felt really great performances from both of the leads, from both Kieran and Elena characters, and you can see his pain and his turmoil, and found myself really drawn into this movie. What did you think of Land of Gold? You know that I went into this kind of dragging my feet, that I wasn't like...
Why are you don't like the subtitles?
No, it's barely subtitled.
Yeah,
no, but I don't know, it didn't seem uber interesting to me. It's a director I've never heard of. But,
right. Well, it's his first time, right?
Well, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
why
I
you never heard of
it.
him.
Exactly.
And he's the star of this movie too. Did you mention that?
I mentioned. Well, while you were derailing, I said he was the writer, director, and star.
There you go.
What did you think of Land of Gold?
It's a lot of hats to wear.
I know.
Yeah, I guess we're going to disagree on this movie, Mr. Rabbit. I mean, I really wanted to like this movie. I just didn't find much of interest here. I mean, the main character, he's very dull and he's a jerk, and the girl is annoying as hell.
Oh, I didn't think she was annoying at all.
So I didn't want to follow these two people even to the nearest McDonald's, much less across the country. So I mean, I thought the scenes of him with his family when he stopped off to see his brother. Mm-hmm. And his father who's dying, I thought those scenes were much more interesting. I thought the mother character who you mentioned was interesting. I just didn't like the dynamic between these two leads. I mean,
that's where we're absolutely the opposite.
Well, it was so predictable. They're gonna get over those differences and they're gonna come together at the end of the movie. And gosh darn it, isn't that gonna make?
But
you
that's
feel
not what
good?
I enjoyed. I enjoyed the culture differences between them and kind of their look at being in America as they were.
I mean, yeah. Obviously, this is not just a road picture. I mean, this is a story about two non-white people that travel across the country and they get met at every stop of the way with some sort of overt or covert racism. And they're looked at sideways by convenience store clerks, and one guy's like chicken marsala or chicken,
or tiki marsala.
Has some
I like
sort of
them both.
stupid question about food, assuming that he's going to be an expert on all things Indian food.
Yeah.
I just didn't like these characters. I just did not get into them. I didn't believe that. I mean, we know they're gonna form a bond. We knew that was gonna happen. It was completely predictable. I understood his motivations for taking on this girl. I mean, he was going to turn her into the police, and then he sees how she's probably going to be treated at the police station. So I bought that. It's a sad commentary that his mistrust of the authorities is proven out.
Well-grounded,
Well-grounded, exactly. And then there was a series of shots at the end of the movie, and I'm not going to give it away, but when the event happens at the end of the movie, and then there's a back and forth.
Pair them together,
Oh, I thought that was just really
that wasn't my favorite, I
just really didn't like that. But yeah, I mean, just, they're eating burgers together and they're looking at the stars together, and it's just, to me, this was very sitcom level stuff.
I enjoyed it.
So I did not, I could not recommend it.
All right, what did you end up giving Land of Gold, sir?
I think on the basis of a couple scenes in the movie that I liked, I gave it 2.5.
That looks about right on there. Yep.
Yeah.
I was much higher because I liked everything you didn't like. I ended up giving it 4 stars. This is a film that I feel like I want to follow this director on where he's going to go next with his next choice of films. But that's over on the Max. Over on Hulu, we have our final film, Streaming Spotlight. What do you have for us?
Over there on the Hulu, like you said, we have a remake of the Ron Shelton 1992 film of it's called White Men Can't Jump, replacing Wesley Snipes and Woody Harrelson with Cinqua Walls and Jack Harlow. This is a film about two financially struggling, could-have-been, should-have-been basketball stars who have a meet cute at a gym and go on to partner up in a series of pickup basketball games in order to hustle enough money to play in a basketball tournament in order to hustle enough more money to play in another basketball tournament. Cinqua plays Kamal Allen, a rising collegiate basketball star, before an unfortunate altercation with a fan put his career in a downward spiral. He's currently a driver for a fictional delivery service. Apparently, UPS and FedEx wanted nothing to do with this movie. Jack Harlow plays Jeremy. He played for Gonzaga, shades of Drew Timme, before a pair of ACL injuries left him trying to hustle energy drinks as well as be a personal basketball trainer. Much like Fast X, I didn't hate this movie, but I didn't really like this movie either. The chemistry between Cinqua Walls and Jack Harlow was pretty good. That goes a long way in carrying the movie. But the script tries too hard to get by on the supposed hilarity of a white guy doing and saying things associated with black culture and vice versa. And for me, that just wasn't enough to carry the film. Now, the same could be said about Kenya Barris's previous script for his film You People. I saw a lot of similarities there between those two scripts. There are no laughs in this movie, and that's a little bit of a problem for a comedy. There are so many times watching this movie that I asked myself, was that supposed to be funny? Was that a joke?
Yeah.
And the basketball sequences are really nothing more interesting or exciting than you would see just on an average Sports Center highlight reel. From
If
a day
that,
in the
this is
NBA.
backyard basketball. I go to any park, I'm watching this basketball happen.
Exactly. So, and there was also some sentimentality scenes between Kamal and his dying father, played by Lance Reddick, who
Lance Reddick, yeah.
actually this was his final film role, and the movie did not earn those scenes as far as I was concerned. And the underlying all of this for me is why? Why was this movie made? I mean,
that's what everyone's asking.
I mean, now for me, a 30-year-old movie doesn't seem that old, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But for the audience that this movie is targeting, it probably is. But I just didn't see the point of this film.
This movie had no edge to it. It was so generic, so boring to me. You said no laughs. It had no point of view. Like, none of these characters mattered to me. Where you rewatch the original, there's
I wish
a lot
I wanted to do, but I didn't have time.
Yeah, I did. And I mean, there's so much going on, and there's so dynamic of characters. And Rosie Perez is the female character in there, is given a lot to do. Mm-hmm. Tiana Taylor, who is a great actress, plays Imani, Kamal's wife, is given really nothing to do. She's just kind of nagged me a little bit about money.
She's the poor put upon,
and
girlfriend. Wife.
I thought Jack Harlow was one of the worst basketball players I've seen on screen. Come on, that was horrible. I didn't really care about the chemistry between them. And you're telling me through shot after shot, flashback after flashback of Kamal was like the greatest high school basketball player until he went into the crowd and fought a fan, blah, blah. And now he's trying to hustle guys. But everyone knows who he is? Like, how do you hustle guys? It's like, I was on Sports Center as a high schooler, but let's go out and hustle these guys. I didn't think Jack Harlow was enough of a rube. Woody Harrelson was great as Billy Hoyle, the white man who couldn't jump, right? Jack Harlow just didn't give that to me. And I don't know. The basketball looked blah. The film lacked any dynamicism or tension.
Did you like the two leads together?
No, I didn't really care about either one. I think Jack Harlow's a terrible actor.
Well, this is his first movie, isn't it?
No, he's been in other things, and he's been hosting SNL and blah, blah, blah. And I just think he's a guy who's looking into the lens of the camera, like, hey, you see me do this? Like, stop it. And it just, the movie to me felt like it was a bench warmer who never got its warm-ups off. And as far as the pantheon of basketball films go, it's near the bottom. Like, the basketball wasn't even exciting. Like,
no, the basketball was not exciting.
If you're gonna give me blah storyline, then give me a dynamic finish, right? Give me something great. We build to the big game and make it great. And we build to the big game, and it was like, that's all right, whatever.
You didn't care that Kamal was having like PTSD when he was out there on the court, and people.
No, I mean the original. Having rewatched it, has its flaws. It's not a great movie, but it has big performances and characters that take big swings, and takes those characters to dark places.
Yeah.
And this didn't take characters anywhere. It just referenced like, hey, he just won't give up. He won't realize that he's never going to make the league. And I don't know.
I think we basically agree on this movie, but I'm guessing that I gave it a better review or rating than you did.
Well, let's find out what you gave it right now.
Based on the chemistry between the two leads, which I thought was there, I gave it 2 stars.
Well, we're not that far off. I gave it 1.5.
Okay.
It's just a very forgettable basketball movie. So, White Man Can't Jump is a big pass from us. Let's take a look ahead, sir. What is coming soon? We are looking at the weekend of June the 2nd. We have a few movies. We have Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, one of my most anticipated films of the year. The sequel to the Miles Morales story that we found in Spider-Man Inside the Spider-Verse? Yeah.
Sure, why not?
Great film. We also have The Boogeyman, an adaptation of Stephen King's story. And then Past Lives, a South Korean film about 2 childhood friends who reunite 20 years later for one fateful week to deal with ideas of love and destiny. This looks really interesting to me. So those are the films that will be coming to theaters near you the weekend of June the 2nd. We want to thank our sponsor, Marcus Theaters, the Palace here in Sun Prairie, for sponsoring this program. We always appreciate that. Next week is going to be a fun show. I'm going to be talking about The Little Mermaid, The Machine, About My Father. We're going to have a throwback movie, and I'm going to be joined by the wonderful Kate Sadler to do all of this. Very excited for that. Sir, once again, thank you for joining me.
It is always a treat and a delight to be here.
I almost believe that. You're a better actor than Jack Harlow. That's pretty good.
Well, Vin Diesel, for
Thank
sure.
you. Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, it's all about family with us, buddy.
Yeah, it's all about
Better
family.
believe it. Let's go get some Coronas.
Mi familia.
All right. Until next week, though, I'm Jameson.
I'm Jeff.
Thanks for watching.